It's time to move into the second half of 1995 with a look at the top stories from July. I'm Senior Airman Chris Galenick. The 301st Intelligence Squadron has a new man at the reins. Colonel Joseph Hurst replaced Colonel Saita in the first week of July as the new commander of the 301st. The Intelligence Squadron is made up of individuals from all four services. And aside from the wing and installation commander, the commander at the 301st is the only one with members from all four services under his control. An assumption of command also took place in July, this one involving an individual who wears two hats. The 35th Security Police Squadron welcomed their new commander, Lieutenant Colonel Dwayne Snow. Not only does Colonel Snow command law enforcement and security police specialists, he also acts as the chief of police, involving constant interaction with off-base authorities. The first Block 30 F-16 arrived on Misawa a decade ago. They're now being replaced by the newer, more improved Block 50s. The transition has taken over a year, and the final flight of the older model taxied into the hangar in July. The flight was somewhat historic as the commander of the 14th, Lieutenant Colonel Kelly, piloted the final flight, his final flight at Misawa. The four-tail number 326 took to the skies one final time. It had to clear the end of runway team, a team that greets every aircraft before it goes airborne. The team consists of crew chiefs, weapons technicians, and specialists who give the aircraft a final once-over before it takes off.
Basically, we ensure that it has no major hydraulic leaks or fuel leaks, check the aircraft, make sure all the panels are secure, and after we have checked the aircraft for that, then we go ahead and remove the munitions pins, and it's allowed to go up in the air.
We traveled from the wild blue yonder to the depths of the ocean during July. We visited the Navy's Mobile Mine Assembly Group, or MOMAG, to learn a little about their mission. At the time of our visit, a group of reservists from Long Beach, California joined Unit 12 for an exercise. The group is responsible for protecting the region's waters and assembling mines. The Defense Advisory Committee on Women in the Services, or DACOWITS team, made their Pacific tour this year and stopped at Misawa in July. The team looks at issues directly relating to women in the military. Their findings are compiled and forwarded directly to the Secretary of Defense. The interesting thing about their visit was that they were interested in the male opinion as well.
What we realize is a lot of the issues that we're dealing with, whether it's sexual harassment, gender communication, child care, women being fully utilized, they really do impact men. And what we're finding is that men and women were working closer together than ever in the military and carrying out responsibilities.
Good news for people assigned to Misawa. July saw the first direct flight from the States right to Misawa Air Base. In the past, individuals had to be routed through Yokota or Narita Airport in Tokyo. Not only was the convenience there, it also opened up many opportunities for Space Age travelers going back to the States. It took a lot of planning, especially in the area of customs control.
Basically, now they have to go through all the check baggage, or well, actually it's their option if they want to do an entire load or just a random sampling or spot check. But now they have basically a full-fledged customs operation here for this particular flight.
One of the most popular events of the year took place this month. Misawa's annual Special Olympics turned out to be another huge success. The weather didn't cooperate, causing the festivities to move indoors, but it in no way dampened the spirits of the participants. With the summer months comes vacation time for the kids. In July, however, over 300 children went back to Solers Elementary for the week-long Vacation Bible School. The school is designed to teach children about the Old and New Testaments through song, crafts, and other methods of instruction. The school is not geared toward any one denomination. The Army and Air Force Exchange Service celebrated 100 years of service this July. The exchange actually dates back to the Revolutionary War, when peddlers used to go around to the troops and sell some of their goods. In 1895, the War Department decided to set aside a separate PX and BX, which developed into the Army Exchange Service. In 1947, when the Air Force was developed, the Exchange Service merged with the Army, giving us what we know today as AFIS. We head into the water once again to close out the month. The Naval Air Facility held their 10th annual boat regatta at the base beach. Funny rules for this regatta though. All the boats had to be handmade and nothing could be purchased to help in the construction. Scrap material had to be used on everything from the oars to the seats. And needless to say, some of these builders shouldn't give up their day jobs. A good number of new commanders made their way to Misawa during the year, and August was no exception. The logistics group said goodbye to Colonel Ronald Nipper and hello to Colonel Robert McMahon. Colonel McMahon takes on the responsibility of overseeing 5 squadrons, including the new direct flight from the States. And the new flight reached the halfway point of the trial period, and officials were closely monitoring its progress. The problem didn't fall on whether they could fill the plane on the way here. The concern was on the return flight to the States, and that would be the determining factor on the future of the Freedom Bird.
The folks at PACAF are looking at possibly extending this through the first quarter of FY96, just because of some things going on, such as the runway at Yokota being closed. We're excited about that. We'd like to be able to continue this, and we think we've got the justification to do that in terms of numbers of passengers, and it's a real quality of life issue for the folks here at Misawa.
During the July review, we told you about the last Block 30 F-16 flight. Well, during August, final preparations were made on the jets that were bound for Cannon Air Force Base, New Mexico. Coincidentally, one of the fighter jocks from the 14th was PCSing to Cannon and was able to fly the jet to his new base. The traffic cops of the sky sent Captain Mark Anderson off in the right direction. I'm referring to air traffic controllers. Their job is of the utmost importance when it comes to safety in the sky. The air traffic controllers are located 9 stories above Misawa's flight line, and the interesting aspect of it all is the fact that they're made up strictly of JASDAF personnel. A group of individuals who work very close with the air traffic controllers are the folks in base operations. Their job is to control all movement on the flight line. Flight plans are routed through base operations before they go to the air traffic controllers. Another part of their job is to track aircraft at other locations that may be headed for Misawa.
This screen will show where the aircraft is when we have aircraft inbound. Like it'll show a triangle, which is the aircraft, and these different fixes here. So if we need to find out exactly where an aircraft is, all we got to do is punch it up on the screen, and it'll show us a wide range of all Japan down to Kadena. We can go all the way up to Alaska.
We took an inside look at another interesting operation. This place is probably the heart and soul of the Air Base. Nothing moves and nothing happens without their knowledge. This place is the command post. The last week of August was the first week of school for Misawa's youth. Cummings and Solers Elementary and Edgren High School all opened their doors for the 1995-1996 school year. This is a shot of over 1,200 students and their parents waiting to invade Solers Elementary. The Enlisted Club began issuing new club cards to all its members. The new cards have the member's picture on the front and a magnetic strip on the back. The cards make it easier for charging purposes, and they're color-coded to designate rank status and underage members. The east side of the base got a new jogging trail in August. Wakasaki course opened to the public. The Northern Civil Engineering Corps of the 1st Platoon completed 2 kilometers of the course over a 6-month period, and the course is eventually expected to be a distance of about 4 kilometers. We'll close out the 8th month of the year with more sports news. The intramural men's softball champions as well as the intramural soccer champions were crowned over the same weekend. Able had the hot gloves and bats during the postseason tournament and beat MSS 19-12 and 11-9 to claim the crown. On the soccer field, the SPs couldn't be touched all season. They went the entire season and through the playoffs without a loss. In the final match, the Cop Shop edged the maintenance squadron 1-0.
Finally made it.
September began with a visit from the Secretary of the Air Force, Dr. Sheila Widnall. Secretary Widnall's visit to Misawa and other bases in the Pacific coincided with a trip to Hawaii commemorating the end of World War II. The Secretary toured many facilities and told us during a sit-down interview how important it was that we work side by side with our Japanese counterparts.
Oh, well, I think it's crucial, obviously, to not only cooperation on the base, but being able to fly together, being able to fight together. And so I think it's a good example of the kind of interoperability that we want to have with all of our allies.
The legal office is a very busy place on any installation, and for good reasons. The staff judge advocate of the Air Force was on base in mid-September. One thing the Air Force is trying to do from a legal standpoint overseas is to get jurisdiction over civilians associated with the Air Base who commit crimes against local communities.
If a host nation understands that we do in fact, i.e. the U.S. government does in fact, have a mechanism to prosecute individuals involved in offenses occurring overseas, i.e. civilians involved in offenses occurring overseas, they would, I think, be more likely to give the United States authorities jurisdiction in such cases. So individuals would be tried in a U.S. court rather than in a court of the host nation.
The PACAF base appearance team spent a week at Misawa. After we were named as PACAF's 5th Air Force representatives, Misawa was put in the running for the Pacific Crown. Appearance team members looked at quality of life issues, self-help projects, and general housekeeping. Team members made it very clear this visit was not an inspection. Hangar 949 was transformed into something that you would have to see to believe. The Air Force celebrated its 48th birthday September 18th, and much of the base population paid tribute by attending the Air Force Ball. PACAF Commander General John Lorber was in attendance for the great night of activities hosted by the 35th Medical Group. We just told you about the PACAF base appearance team. Ironically, their visit began one day after the annual Air Festival. Officials estimated the crowd at over 200,000 people. The highlight of the day was the Japan Air Self-Defense Force's Blue Impulse. Many base agencies played major roles in the Air Festival. Misawa's explosive ordnance team was right in the middle of all the action. They were responsible for detonating explosives during the airfield attack to add a little realism to the show. As you know, all 4 services make up Misawa Air Base, and the Navy has the second most people behind blue suiters. The Navy has a P3 mission here, and that mission is fulfilled by units who come here 6 months at a time. The mission is to patrol the waters around the region and during wartime destroy enemy ships and submarines. While the Navy relies on the P3 to complete part of its overall mission, the Air Force relies heavily on vehicles. That's where transportation comes in. Transportation controls, distributes, and maintains virtually every Air Force vehicle in the inventory. To make sure that units are doing their part to preserve these resources, an annual roll-by was conducted to identify vehicles that need maintenance, painting, or waxing. One benefit provided by the Communications Squadron is history. The military-affiliated radio station, or MARS, was specifically designed to provide bases with communication in case of emergency or natural disaster. They also provide Marsgrams free of service to the community. Messages could be sent to the States or anywhere in the Pacific. The Pacific Commander came to Misawa in September to make the announcement that Mars will cease to exist at the end of October.
Most of the field units are using alternative technology to satisfy those missions. So from that standpoint, Mars is not highly being utilized at the site and is no longer cost effective to keep them open.
The contracting squadron did something that hadn't been tried in over 20 years. They hosted a vendor's fair on base. Commercial vendors throughout Japan were invited to Misawa to show off their equipment and hopefully invite some new business. The fair was geared more towards squadron equipment account holders rather than the general public. It was announced late September that gas prices would increase at AFIS gas stations. A gallon of gas jumped from $1.15 a gallon to $1.19 a gallon. The price is locked in at least until the end of the fiscal year. Finally, in September, a rather unique ceremony at NAF. One person re-enlisted and the other enlisted. Now that might not sound so unusual, but the two were mother and son. Eric Teeter decided to follow in his mother's footsteps and join the Navy, but whether or not he'll stay in as long as his mom is something we won't know for another 20 years. Senior Airman Erica Dudley joins us after a short break. She'll take us into the last quarter of 1995 when the FEN News Year in Review continues.
If you drink and drive, you can expect this. You might be able to pass this test. You probably won't pass this one. You definitely can't beat this one. If you refuse this test, you lose your license for 1 year. Then command consent is requested to take this test. Stop testing the system. Don't drink, then drive.